The massive space station called Concordia floated in the dark space around planet Kepler 442b. The station was bigger than most cities on Earth. Its silver wall stretched for miles in every direction. Bright lights marked the docking bays where ships from across the galaxy came to land. Inside the station, the Great Council Chamber buzzed with activity. 12 different alien races had gathered for an emergency meeting. Each species looked completely different from the others. The Vorthak were tall beings made of living crystal. Their bodies caught the light and threw rainbow colors across the walls. When they moved, they made soft chiming sounds like wind bells. The Nebulans had no solid bodies at all. They were clouds of glowing gas that floated above special chairs built just for them. Their voices sounded like music when they spoke. The gas changed colors when they felt different emotions. Right now, most of them glowed red with anger. The Chitauri looked like giant insects with 4 arms and shiny black shells. Their eyes were compound like a fly's eyes, made up of thousands of tiny parts. They clicked and chittered when they talked to each other. The sound echoed through the chamber like rain on a metal roof. 9 other alien species filled the remaining seats. Some were small and furry. Others were tall and thin with blue skin. A few looked almost like plants with green leaves growing from their heads. All of them had one thing in common today. They were worried about the humans. Admiral Chenwei walked into the chamber with slow, steady steps. He wore the dark blue uniform of Earth's Space Navy. The uniform was simple compared to the fancy robes and decorations the aliens wore. Behind him came Ambassador Sarah Okafor. She carried a small briefcase and wore a plain black business suit. 6 human security guards followed them, but they carried no visible weapons. The humans looked around the great chamber without showing any fear or surprise. Admiral Chen had gray hair and calm eyes. He had seen many battles in space and nothing seemed to shake him anymore. Ambassador Okafor was younger, with dark skin and intelligent eyes. She had spent years learning about alien cultures and languages. The human delegation took their seats in a special section marked for defendants. The chairs were smaller than those built for the larger alien species. This was done on purpose to make the humans feel small and unimportant. But Admiral Chen and Ambassador Okafor sat down as if they were in their own offices back on Earth. Chancellor Zephi of the Vorthak stood up first. His crystal body was 12 feet tall and caught the chamber lights like a giant diamond. When he spoke, his voice rang like a bell through the translation devices. "Humans of Earth," he began, "you have been called before this council to answer for your crimes against galactic peace." The other aliens nodded and made sounds of agreement. The Nebulans pulsed with bright orange light. The Chitauri clicked their approval. Admiral Chen wrote something in a small notebook but did not look up. "For the past 50 years, the Chancellor continued, your species has spread across space like a disease. You take planets that do not belong to you. You build colonies without asking permission. You ignore the ancient laws that have kept peace in this galaxy for 10,000 years. Ambassador Okafor looked up from her own notes. "Could you be more specific about which laws we have broken?" she asked politely. The question seemed to surprise the Chancellor. His crystal body flashed bright white for a moment. "You dare to question the wisdom of this council?" "I'm asking for clarification," the ambassador replied. Her voice stayed calm and professional. "As representatives of Earth, we need to understand exactly what we are being accused of." A Nebulan delegate floated forward. The gas cloud was now bright red with anger. "Your species builds weapons of terrible power," it said in its musical voice. "Your ships are too fast and too strong. You make other races afraid. Your military grows larger every year," added a Chitauri representative. "You train soldiers on 100 worlds. This threatens the balance of power in our galaxy." Admiral Chen finally looked up from his notebook. "How many wars has Earth started in the past 50 years?" he asked. The aliens looked at each other with confusion. The Chancellor's crystal body dimmed as he thought about the question. "That is not the point," he said finally. "It seems like an important point to me," the Admiral replied. He closed his notebook and folded his hands. "If we are accused of being dangerous, it would be good to know who we have actually hurt." The chamber fell silent for a moment. The truth was that humans had never started a war with any alien species. They had defended themselves when attacked, but they had never been the aggressors. This fact made the aliens uncomfortable, but they did not want to admit it. A small furry alien called Araxian spoke up. "Your expansion threatens our territory," it squeaked. You take the best planets before we can claim them. The galaxy is very large, Ambassador Okafor said. There are millions of planets suitable for life. How does our settlement of a few hundred worlds threaten anyone? The questions from the humans made the aliens more nervous. They had expected the humans to be afraid and apologetic. Instead, the humans seemed calm and even slightly bored. This was not how defendants were supposed to act. Chancellor HFY decided to take control of the meeting again. "Enough," he declared. His voice rang through the chamber like a gong. "This council has made its decision. Humanity will accept these terms or face the consequences." He activated a holographic display that showed a long list of demands. The text appeared in hundreds of languages so every species could read it. The humans read through the list without changing their expressions. The demands were harsh. Earth would have to give up half of its colonies. The human military would be reduced to 1/10 of its current size. Earth would pay massive fines to every alien government. Human ships would need permission before traveling between star systems. Most importantly, Earth would accept permanent observers from the Galactic Council who would watch everything humans did. "You have 72 hours to accept these terms," the Chancellor announced. "If you refuse, every civilized species in this galaxy will unite against you. Your worlds will be blockaded. Your ships will be seized. Your people will be cut off from all galactic trade and communication." The threat hung in the air like smoke. The alien delegates waited for the humans to beg or plead or show some sign of fear. They expected Admiral Chen to ask for mercy. They thought Ambassador Okafor would try to negotiate for better terms. Instead, Admiral Chen stood up slowly. He looked around the chamber at all the alien faces staring at him. "We will need to discuss this among ourselves," he said simply. "Of course," the Chancellor replied. His crystal body brightened with satisfaction. "Take your time to consider your position. But remember, these terms are not negotiable. You will accept them exactly as they are written." Ambassador Okafor gathered her papers and put them in her briefcase. "We understand," she said. "Thank you for making your position clear." The humans walked out of the chamber in the same calm manner they had entered. The security guards followed behind them, still showing no signs of worry or fear. The alien delegates watched them go with growing confidence. As soon as the humans were gone, the aliens began to celebrate. The nebulans glowed bright yellow with happiness. The Chitauri clicked and buzzed with excitement. The Chancellor's crystal body sparkled like a star. "Finally," said one of the Raxians, "the humans understand their place in the galaxy." "They looked so defeated," laughed a blue-skinned alien. "Did you see how quietly they accepted our terms?" 50 years too late, added a nebulan. "But at least they are learning to respect their betters." The aliens spent the rest of the day planning how they would divide up human territories once Earth surrendered. They talked about which planets they would claim and how they would use human technology for their own benefit. The meeting had gone exactly as they had hoped. None of them noticed that the humans had never actually agreed to anything. They had only said they needed to discuss it. But the aliens were so sure of their victory that they missed this important detail. In their quarters on the space station, Admiral Chen and Ambassador Okafor were indeed having discussions. But these talks were not about surrender. They were about something else entirely. The human quarters on Concordia Station were much smaller than the spaces given to other alien delegations. The rooms had basic furniture and simple white walls. There were no decorations or luxury items. The aliens had chosen these rooms on purpose to show the humans their low status in galactic society. Admiral Chen and Ambassador Okafor did not seem to care about the plain surroundings. They sat at a small metal table with their security team standing nearby. The Admiral opened a secure communication device that looked like a simple tablet computer. In reality, it used quantum encryption technology that no alien species had been able to break. The screen flickered and showed the face of President Martinez back on Earth. Behind her sat the Secretary of Defense and several other important officials. The time delay for communication across space was only a few seconds thanks to human quantum relay technology. "We watched the meeting through your body cameras," President Martinez said without any greeting. "How bad is it?" Ambassador Okafor spoke first. "They want everything, Madam President. Half our colonies, most of our military, permanent oversight of our government, complete surrender in all but name." "And if we refuse?" asked the Secretary of Defense. Admiral Chen leaned forward. They claim they will unite the entire galaxy against us. Economic blockade, military action, complete isolation. President Martinez was quiet for a moment. She had been expecting this day for years. Human intelligence services had been tracking alien communications and knew that many species were growing nervous about human expansion. But the demands were even worse than their worst-case scenarios had predicted. Do they have the ability to follow through on their threats? She asked. On paper, yes, Admiral Chen replied. Combined alien fleets outnumber ours 3-1. Their economic power is massive. But there are problems with their plan that they may not have considered. Explain. The Admiral pulled up a holographic display showing star charts and ship movements. Most alien species have been at peace for centuries. Their militaries are designed for defense and ceremony, not actual combat. More importantly, they have never fought together as a unified force. They have different technologies, different tactics, different command structures. What about the economic blockade? President Martinez asked. Ambassador Okafor answered this time. That might actually hurt them more than us. Our analysis shows that human trade and services are much more important to their economies than they realize. They think of us as junior partners, but the reality is quite different. How different? We handle 47% of all cargo shipping in known space, the ambassador said. Our merchant marine is larger than all alien fleets combined. We provide critical services to hundreds of worlds. If we stopped working with them tomorrow, their economies would collapse within months. President Martinez raised an eyebrow. They don't know this? They think of trade as something beneath their notice, Admiral Chen explained. Most alien cultures consider commerce to be a lower-class activity. They prefer to focus on politics and ceremony and ancient traditions. They let us handle the dirty work of actually moving goods around the galaxy, because it's not important to them. Until now, Ambassador Okafor added. The president looked at her advisors off-screen, then back at the camera. What are your recommendations? Admiral Chen and Ambassador Okafor looked at each other. They had been discussing this question for the past hour and had reached the same conclusion. We recommend full withdrawal, the Admiral said simply. The words hung in the air like a bomb waiting to explode. Even through the quantum communication link, they could see the shock on President Martinez's face. Explain what you mean by full withdrawal, she said carefully. We pull out of all alien territories, Ambassador Okafor said. We call home every human ship, every human worker, every human business operating in alien space. We close our borders and end all diplomatic relations. Complete isolation. That's exactly what they're threatening to do to us, the Secretary of Defense pointed out. Yes, Admiral Chen agreed, but we would be doing it to ourselves on our own terms. The difference is crucial. President Martinez leaned back in her chair. Walk me through the consequences. Ambassador Okafor pulled up her own data displays. Short term, it would be difficult for us. We would lose some trade income and access to certain alien technologies. Some of our colonies depend on alien-grown food supplies. We would need to become completely self-sufficient within a few years. That's the bad news, Admiral Chen continued. The good news is that we can do it. Human colonies are more independent than alien settlements. Our technology is advancing faster than theirs. Our population is growing while most alien species have stable or declining birth rates. And the effect on them? President Martinez asked. Catastrophic, Ambassador Okafor said without hesitation. Food shortages on dozens of worlds. Complete breakdown of interstellar commerce. Industrial collapse in sectors that depend on human-manufactured goods. They would be looking at the worst economic disaster in galactic history. Meanwhile, in the alien quarters on the other side of the station, very different conversations were taking place. Chancellor Zeph stood in his crystal garden, a special room filled with singing crystals from his home world. The music they made helped him think clearly. Several other alien leaders had come to visit him. They were excited about their success in the negotiations. The Nebulan representative floated nearby, glowing soft blue with contentment. The humans looked so defeated, the Nebulan sang. Did you see how they said nothing when we read our demands? Exactly as I predicted, the Chancellor replied. His crystal body chimed with satisfaction. Humans are young and emotional. When faced with superior wisdom and power, they have no choice but to submit. A Chitauri delegate clicked agreement. My species has studied human psychology for decades. They are natural followers who respect authority. Once they understand they cannot win, They will accept any terms we offer. The aliens spent hours discussing how to divide human territories once Earth surrendered. The Vorthak wanted the mineral-rich worlds that humans had colonized near the galactic center. The Nebulans claimed the agricultural planets that produced exotic foods. The Chitauri were interested in human manufacturing centers. "We should be generous in victory," advised an elderly Raxian. "Perhaps we let them keep 25% of their colonies instead of taking half. It would show our wisdom and mercy." "Agreed," said the Chancellor. "We are not conquerors. We are teachers helping a young species learn their proper place in galactic civilization." None of the aliens thought to check what the humans were actually doing during their deliberation period. They assumed the human delegation was arguing among themselves about which terms to accept. The idea that humans might refuse everything never seriously entered their minds. If they had been monitoring human communications, they would have seen a very different picture. Across human space, ships were receiving new orders. Colony administrators were implementing emergency protocols that had been planned for years. Military units were moving to defensive positions, but the aliens saw none of this. They were too busy celebrating their expected victory and planning how to use their new power over humanity. Back in the human quarters, the secure communication with Earth was ending. President Martinez had made her decision after consulting with the full cabinet and military leadership. "You have authorization for full withdrawal," she said. "Execute Plan Exodus immediately." Admiral Chen nodded. "Understood, Madam President." "How long do we have?" "The aliens gave you 72 hours to respond." "I want all human assets moving toward home space within 48 hours. Make it look like normal business until the last possible moment." "What about our response to the Council?" Ambassador Okafor asked. President Martinez smiled for the first time during the conversation. "Tell them exactly what you think they deserve to hear." The communication ended and the room fell silent. The 6 security guards had heard everything but showed no reaction. They were all military veterans who had trained for this possibility. Admiral Chen closed the quantum communicator and looked around the room. "Well," he said quietly, "I guess we're really doing this." Ambassador Okafor was already opening her briefcase and pulling out different documents. These were not diplomatic papers, but detailed instructions for coordinating the largest evacuation in human history. "Signal all human ships in this sector," she told one of the security guards. "Use code word homecoming. They'll know what to do." Outside their quarters, the aliens continued their celebrations, unaware that human civilization was about to disappear from their galaxy forever. 72 hours had passed since the Galactic Council delivered their ultimatum to humanity. The great chamber on Concordia Station buzzed with anticipation as alien delegates took their seats. Everyone expected this to be a simple ceremony, where the humans would formally surrender to superior alien wisdom. Chancellor Zephi stood at the center of the chamber, his crystal body glowing with satisfaction. Around him, the other alien species waited eagerly to hear the words of human submission. The Nebulans pulsed with soft golden light. The Chitauri clicked their approval before anything had even been said. Even the normally cautious Raxians seemed confident and happy. The chamber doors opened and Admiral Chen walked in with the same steady pace he had used 3 days earlier. Ambassador Okafor followed beside him, carrying her briefcase as before. The 6 human security guards came behind them, showing no more emotion than statues. The humans took their seats in the defendant section without ceremony. Admiral Chen opened his notebook and wrote something down. Ambassador Okafor checked her watch and made a note in her own papers. They looked like people attending a routine business meeting rather than representatives of a defeated species. Chancellor Zephi waited for the humans to speak first. He expected them to ask for mercy or beg for more time. When they remained silent, he decided to prompt them. "Humans of Earth," his voice rang through the translation devices. 72 hours have passed. This council awaits your formal acceptance of our terms." Admiral Chen looked up from his notebook with mild interest, as if the Chancellor had asked about the weather. "We have completed our deliberations," he said calmly. "Excellent." The Chancellor's crystal body brightened like a star. "Please state your acceptance for the record." The Admiral stood up slowly and looked around the chamber at all the alien faces staring at him expectantly. When he spoke, his voice was clear and steady. After careful consideration of your proposal, the government of Earth respectfully declines. For a moment, the chamber was completely silent. The translation devices hummed softly as they processed the Admiral's words into hundreds of different languages. The aliens sat frozen as the meaning became clear. The word declines echoed through the chamber like thunder. Chancellor HFY was the first to recover from his shock. His crystal body flashed bright white, then deep red. "You misunderstand the situation," he said, his voice no longer musical but harsh and grinding. "This was not a proposal. These were terms that you will accept." Ambassador Okafor stood up beside the Admiral. She opened her briefcase and pulled out a single sheet of paper. "We understand perfectly," she said with a slight smile. "You have made your position very clear. We are now making our position equally clear." She held up the paper and began to read from it in a calm, professional voice. "The government of Earth hereby formally rejects all demands made by this council. We do not recognize the authority of this body to govern human affairs. We will not reduce our military forces. We will not abandon our colonies. We will not pay fines or accept observers. We will not submit to alien oversight of any kind." The chamber erupted into chaos. Aliens leaped to their feet, making sounds of outrage and disbelief. The nebulans flashed angry red colors. The Chitauri buzzed like an angry hive. Smaller species chittered and squeaked in their native languages. "Silence!" Chancellor HFY's voice cut through the noise like a sword. The other aliens fell quiet, but their agitation was obvious. The Chancellor's crystal body now glowed with such intense light that it hurt to look at directly. "You cannot simply refuse," he declared. "No species has ever rejected the wisdom of this council. You are making a mistake that will destroy your entire civilization." Admiral Chen remained standing with his hands clasped behind his back. "That is certainly possible," he agreed. "But it will be our mistake to make." The casual admission seemed to shock the aliens even more than the original refusal. They had expected the humans to argue or try to negotiate or show some sign of fear. Instead, the humans acted as if they were discussing a minor business disagreement. A nebulan delegate floated forward, its gas body swirling with agitated colors. "Do you understand what we are offering you?" It sang in its musical voice. "Peace, order, a place in galactic civilization. Why would you throw this away?" Ambassador Okafor tilted her head thoughtfully. "That's an interesting way to describe permanent subjugation," she said. "But we have a different perspective on the value of freedom versus the comfort of servitude." The Chitauri representative rose on its four legs, compound eyes glittering with anger. "You speak of freedom, but you ignore responsibility. Your expansion threatens the stability that has kept peace for 10,000 years. Has it really been peaceful?" Admiral Chen asked. "Or has it been stagnant?" The question hung in the air like poison gas. The aliens looked at each other with growing uncertainty. The truth was that galactic civilization had not advanced much in the past several millennia. Most species were content to maintain their ancient ways and avoid change. Only humanity had been pushing boundaries and exploring new possibilities. Chancellor HFY decided to end this embarrassing discussion and move to threats. "You leave us no choice," he announced. "Since you will not accept wisdom, you will face the consequences of your arrogance. This council hereby declares a complete economic blockade of all human territories. No alien ship will trade with Earth. No alien government will recognize human claims to any world or star system." He paused to let the weight of his words sink in, then continued. "Furthermore, we authorize military action against any human vessel found outside your original solar system. You have forced us to treat you as enemies of galactic peace." The other aliens nodded and made sounds of approval. This was the moment they had been waiting for. Finally, the stubborn humans would understand their powerlessness against the combined might of 12 advanced civilizations. Admiral Chen listened to the entire speech without changing expression. When the Chancellor finished, the Admiral opened his notebook again and wrote something down. Then he looked up with what might have been mild curiosity. "How do you plan to enforce this blockade?" he asked. The question surprised the Chancellor. "Our combined fleets will patrol all space lanes. Our economic networks will refuse all human goods. Your isolation will be complete." "That sounds like a lot of work," Ambassador Okafor observed. "Are you sure your member species are willing to commit the resources necessary?" For the first time, some of the aliens looked uncertain. The Raxian delegate spoke up nervously. "Of course we are united in this decision. The vote was unanimous, wait, was it? The ambassador asked politely. Or did some species simply go along because they thought it would be easy? The chamber fell quiet again as aliens looked at each other with growing doubt. The truth was that many species had supported the ultimatum because they thought humans would surrender immediately. None of them had seriously planned for what would happen if the humans actually refused. Admiral Chen closed his notebook and picked up his briefcase. "We appreciate the clarity of your position," he said formally. "It makes our own decisions much simpler." "What decisions?" Chancellor HFY demanded. The Admiral looked directly at him with calm, steady eyes. "We've survived and thrived for thousands of years without galactic civilization. We can do it again." He turned and began walking toward the chamber doors. Ambassador Okafor followed beside him, her heels clicking on the metal floor. The security guards fell into formation behind them. "Wait," called the Nebulan delegate. "You cannot simply leave. We are not finished with these negotiations." Ambassador Okafor stopped and turned back with a polite smile. "I'm afraid there's nothing left to negotiate," she said. "You've made your terms clear and we've given you our answer. There's really nothing more to discuss." "But this is impossible," squeaked a Raxian representative. "You cannot survive without us. You need galactic trade. You need our technology. You need our knowledge." Admiral Chen paused at the chamber doors. "Do we?" he asked quietly. "Or do you need ours?" With that, the human delegation walked out of the chamber for the last time. The great doors closed behind them with a soft hiss, leaving the alien delegates staring at each other in stunned silence. For several minutes, no one spoke. The reality of what had just happened was too shocking to process. The humans had not just refused to surrender. They had walked away from galactic civilization entirely. Chancellor HFY was the first to break the silence. "They're bluffing," he declared, but his crystal body flickered with uncertainty. "This is a negotiating tactic. They will return within days begging for mercy." But even as he spoke the words, he could see doubt in the eyes of the other delegates. Deep down, they were all beginning to realize the same terrible truth. The humans had not looked like they were bluffing. They had looked like people who had already made their decision and were simply informing others about it. There had been no anger, no fear, no desperation in their voices. Just calm certainty that they were doing the right thing. As the alien delegates filed out of the chamber to begin their emergency planning sessions, none of them noticed the first warning signs appearing on their communication networks. The first report started coming in 6 hours after the humans left the council chamber. Chancellor HFY was in his private quarters, trying to meditate among his singing crystals when his aide burst through the door. The young Vorthak's crystal body was flashing urgent orange patterns. "Chancellor," the aide chimed frantically, "we have a problem. Human cargo ships are leaving their routes." The Chancellor turned slowly, his meditation broken. "What do you mean, leaving their routes?" "Ships carrying food supplies to Vorthak 7 have turned around and are heading back toward human space. The same thing is happening in a dozen other systems. The captains say they have received new orders." Chancellor HFY felt a cold sensation in his crystal core. "Contact the ship captains immediately. Tell them they are in violation of their contracts." "We tried, sir. They are not responding to our communications." In another part of the station, the Nebulan Collective was experiencing something close to panic. Their gaseous forms swirled in agitated colors as emergency reports flooded their shared consciousness. "The agriculture world of Kepler 438b has stopped all shipments," reported one voice in the collective. 17 billion tons of grain that was scheduled for delivery to our colonies has been canceled. "The human mining operations in the Proxima sector have shut down," added another voice. "They are loading their equipment onto transport ships. Our industrial centers depend on human-manufactured components," a third voice sang in distress. "If those shipments stop, our production lines will fail within weeks." The Chitauri delegation was having similar problems. Their compound eyes tracked dozens of data streams showing disruptions across their territory. The clicking and buzzing in their communication filled their quarters like an angry insect swarm. "Human technical support for our space elevators has ended," one Chitauri reported. "The human engineers are packing their equipment. Our asteroid mining platforms are going offline," another added. "The human maintenance crews are abandoning their posts." "This cannot be coincidence," the lead Chitauri delegate concluded. "The humans are coordinating a complete withdrawal from our space." Within 12 hours of the failed negotiations, Every alien government was receiving similar reports. Human workers were leaving their jobs. Human ships were returning to human space. Human businesses were closing their offices and loading their equipment onto transport vessels. The scale of the withdrawal was staggering. Humans worked in every corner of galactic civilization, often in jobs that the aliens considered beneath their notice. They operated cargo ships and maintained space stations. They provided technical support for alien technology and managed agricultural worlds. They ran the countless small businesses that kept galactic trade functioning, and now they were all leaving. Ambassador Dexhai of the Raxians was the first to grasp the true scope of the problem. She stood in the Council's emergency session room, surrounded by holographic displays showing economic data from across the galaxy. "Look at these numbers," she squeaked, her small voice barely audible above the translation devices. Humans control 47% of all interstellar cargo transport. They operate the largest merchant marine fleet in known space. The other delegates leaned forward to examine her data. The numbers were shocking. Human ships carried goods between star systems that had never bothered to develop their own transportation networks. Many alien species had grown completely dependent on human logistics without realizing it. "It gets worse," Ambassador Dexhai continued. "Human agricultural worlds produce food for over 1 billion non-human citizens across dozens of systems. Their manufacturing centers create essential components for alien technology. Their service industries maintain critical infrastructure throughout galactic civilization." Chancellor Zeph-Hai studied the data with growing alarm. His crystal body dimmed as he processed the implications. "How did we not know this?" he asked quietly. "Because we never paid attention," replied the lead Nebulan representative. "We considered commerce and manual labor to be beneath our notice. We let humans handle these tasks because we thought they were unimportant." The terrible truth was becoming clear to everyone in the room. Galactic civilization had grown dependent on human services while treating humans as junior partners. The aliens had focused on politics and ceremony and ancient traditions, while humans quietly became the backbone of the galactic economy. A Chitauri delegate clicked nervously. "Surely this is just a temporary disruption. The humans are trying to pressure us into changing our demands. Once they realize we are serious about the blockade, they will return to their jobs." But even as the words were spoken, new reports were arriving that made this hope seem foolish. Long-range sensors were detecting massive fleet movements throughout human space. These were not the actions of a species preparing to negotiate. They were the systematic movements of a civilization preparing for complete isolation. "Look at this data," said a blue-skinned alien from the Outer Rim territories. He activated a holographic display showing ship movements in human space. Every human civilian vessel outside their core territories is moving toward Earth. Every human military ship is taking defensive positions around human colonies. "They are not bluffing," whispered a plant-like delegate from the inner systems. "They are actually leaving us." The mood in the emergency session grew darker as more reports arrived. Human diplomats were closing their embassies and consulates throughout alien space. Human researchers were abandoning joint scientific projects. Human students were withdrawing from alien universities. Most disturbing of all, the humans were not stealing anything or breaking their contracts violently. They were simply fulfilling their legal obligations as quickly as possible, and then departing. They paid their debts, completed their current shipments, and gave proper notice to their employees. But they made it clear that no new agreements would be signed and no existing contracts would be renewed. Chancellor Zeph-Hai tried to maintain his authority in the face of growing panic. "We must respond with strength," he declared. "Send warships to intercept human vessels leaving our territories. Seize their assets. Show them that we will not tolerate this behavior." Several delegates voiced agreement, but Ambassador Dexhai raised a troubling question. "Which warships?" she asked. "Most of our military vessels are defensive platforms designed to protect our home systems. We have very few ships capable of deep space operations. The humans have the largest space navy in the galaxy," added the Nebulan representative. "Their ships are faster and more advanced than ours. If we try to stop them by force, we will likely lose. Besides," said a Chitauri delegate, "many of our own defense systems depend on human-built components. If we start a shooting war with them, our own military capabilities might be compromised." The meeting continued for hours as the aliens struggled to find a solution to their growing crisis. Every option they considered had serious problems. They could not force the humans to stay because their military was not strong enough. They could not replace human services quickly because they had never developed alternatives. They could not even communicate effectively with many human ships because the humans had stopped responding to alien transmissions. As the first day ended, the scope of the disaster was becoming clear. Human withdrawal was not just causing economic disruption, it was threatening the basic functioning of galactic civilization. The Vorthek mining colony on Kepler 442c reported that their automated systems were failing without human technical support. Food riots were beginning on Nebulan worlds that depended on human agricultural imports. Chitauri industrial centers were shutting down production lines due to lack of human-manufactured components. "How long can this continue?" asked the Chancellor as the emergency session finally ended. "Without human cargo ships, critical supplies will run out within weeks," Ambassador Dexhai replied. "Without human agricultural exports, food shortages will begin within months. Without human technical support, our infrastructure will start failing within a year." "And our response?" The small Raxian delegate looked around the room at the other alien representatives. All of them showed signs of stress and worry. "We could try to negotiate," she suggested quietly. "Negotiate?" The Chancellor's crystal body flashed angry red. "They walked out on us. They rejected our generous offer. They insulted the dignity of this council." "But what choice do we have?" asked the Nebulan representative. "Every hour they are gone makes our situation worse. Every day of this withdrawal brings us closer to complete economic collapse." The Chancellor stood silent for a long moment, his crystal form slowly dimming. Around him, the other delegates waited for his response. Outside the meeting room, their civilizations were beginning to experience the first effects of a galaxy without humans. For 10,000 years, galactic civilization had been stable and peaceful. But that stability had been built on a foundation that none of them had bothered to examine closely. Now that foundation was crumbling, and they were finally beginning to understand what the humans had meant when they said they could survive without galactic civilization. The real question was whether galactic civilization could survive without them. 1 week after the humans departed from negotiations, galactic civilization was dying. The first planet to fall into chaos was Vorthak 7, a crystal mining world in the Outer Rim. The planet's automated mining systems had been designed and maintained by human engineers for 30 years. When the human technical teams evacuated, the complex machinery began to malfunction. Chancellor Zeph High received the emergency report while standing in his private crystal garden aboard Concordia Station. His aide's crystal body was flashing urgent red patterns as she delivered the news. "The primary extraction facility has completely shut down," she chimed with distress. "Secondary systems are failing across the planet. Without human technical support, we cannot restart the operations. What about our own engineers?" the Chancellor asked, though he already knew the answer. "We trained them to supervise human workers, not to actually operate the machinery. The technology is too complex for us to manage alone." The Chancellor's crystal form dimmed with growing dread. Vorthak 7 produced rare crystals that were essential for their species' technology. Without those crystals, their entire civilization would slowly grind to a halt. But Vorthak 7 was just the beginning. On the agricultural world of Kepler 438b, massive automated farms had fed 17 billion non-human citizens across dozens of star systems. The planet's climate control systems, irrigation networks, and harvesting machines had all been designed by human engineers. When the human support teams left, the entire agricultural system began to collapse. The Nebulan Collective received hourly reports of crop failures and equipment breakdowns. Their gaseous forms swirled in panicked colors as they tried to process the scope of the disaster. "Estimated food shortages will begin within 6 weeks," reported one voice in the collective. "Complete famine within 4 months. Our own agricultural worlds cannot make up the difference," sang another voice in despair. "We never developed the capacity. We depended on human food production for too much of our supply." "How many of our citizens will die?" asked a third voice. The collective fell silent. The answer was too terrible to speak aloud. Similar crises were erupting throughout galactic civilization. The Chitauri industrial centers were shutting down one by one as their supply chains collapsed. Human-manufactured components were essential for everything from space elevators to power generators. Without new shipments, critical infrastructure was failing. The transportation crisis was even worse. Human cargo ships had connected the galaxy like a vast circulatory system, moving goods and people between star systems that had no other means of long-range transport. When those ships disappeared, entire regions found themselves cut off from the rest of galactic civilization. Ambassador Dexhai of the Raxians stood in the Council's Crisis Management Center, surrounded by holographic displays showing the breakdown of galactic trade. Red warning symbols marked systems that were experiencing critical shortages. The display looked like a patient dying of blood loss. The Proxima sector has less than 2 weeks of medical supplies remaining, she reported to the assembled delegates. The Centauri colonies are running out of power generation equipment. The Outer Rim territories have lost all communication with the core worlds. What about our own ships? Asked a desperate Chitauri delegate. Can we replace the human cargo vessels? Ambassador Dexhai's small form slumped with exhaustion. We tried. Our merchant fleets are designed for short-range transport within our own territories. We never built ships capable of efficient long-distance cargo hauling. The humans were so much better at it that we never saw the need. How long would it take to build replacement vessels? With human-designed shipyards? Several years. Without them? Decades. The awful truth was becoming clear to everyone in the room. Galactic civilization had grown dependent on human capabilities, while treating humans as unimportant junior partners. The aliens had focused on maintaining their ancient traditions and political structures while humans quietly became essential to the actual functioning of their society. Chancellor Zephyhi tried to maintain his authority in the face of mounting disaster. We must contact the humans immediately, he declared. Tell them we are willing to negotiate new terms. We have been trying, replied the Nebulan representative. Human governments are not responding to our communications. Their diplomatic channels have been closed. Then we will send ships to Earth and demand they listen to us. With what ships? Asked Ambassador Dexhai quietly. Most of our long-range vessels require human-manufactured parts for proper operation. Our own shipyards are starting to experience component shortages. The Chancellor's crystal body flickered with rage and desperation. For 10,000 years, his species had been among the most powerful in the galaxy. Now they were facing the collapse of everything they had built, and they were powerless to stop it. The crisis deepened with each passing day. Reports flooded in from across galactic civilization as the full scope of human integration became clear. Humans had not just provided services to alien governments. They had become woven into the basic fabric of galactic society. Human-operated shipping lines connected thousands of worlds. Human agricultural techniques fed billions of alien citizens. Human manufacturing provided essential components for alien technology. Human technical expertise maintained critical infrastructure throughout known space. And all of it was disappearing at once. On the industrial world of Tau Ceti IV, the massive factory complexes that produced starship components were shutting down. Human engineers had designed the automated systems and human technicians had maintained them for decades. Without human expertise, the complex machinery was beyond alien ability to operate. The lead Chitauri delegate received reports that made his compound eyes dim with horror. Estimated timeline for complete industrial collapse, 3 months, his aide clicked nervously. After that, we will be unable to manufacture replacement parts for our own infrastructure. What about our military vessels? They depend on the same manufacturing base. Without industrial capacity, we cannot maintain our fleet. The military implications were staggering. The alien governments had threatened humanity with their combined naval power. But that power depended on human-built components and human-maintained facilities. As the infrastructure collapsed, their military capabilities were collapsing with it. 2 weeks after the human departure, the first government fell. The small confederation of worlds in the Sigma Draconis system declared a state of emergency and formally requested human assistance. When no response came, riots began on their capital world. The Raxian ambassador watched the news reports with growing terror. If small governments were already collapsing, how long before larger civilizations followed? We have to do something, she squeaked to the emergency council session. Our own citizens are starting to panic. Food rationing has begun on 6 Raxian worlds. Our transportation system is operating at 20% capacity. What do you suggest? Asked Chancellor Zephyhi. His crystal form had dimmed considerably over the past 2 weeks, reflecting his growing despair. "We admit we made a mistake," the Raxian ambassador said simply. "We send a formal apology to Earth and beg them to return." The words hung in the chamber like a death sentence. For species that had ruled the galaxy for millennia, the idea of begging a young race for help was almost unbearable, but the alternative was worse. "Even if we apologize," the Nebulan representative sang mournfully, "why would they return? We threatened them with destruction. We demanded their submission. We treated them like children who needed to be disciplined. Because they are better than us," Ambassador Dexhai said quietly. The other delegates turned to stare at her in shock. No alien had ever spoken such words in the council chamber. "Look at how they left," she continued. "They could have sabotaged our systems. They could have stolen our technology. They could have damaged our infrastructure out of spite. Instead, they fulfilled their contracts, paid their debts, and departed peacefully. They acted with more honor than we did." The truth of her words was undeniable. Even in their anger at alien demands, humans had behaved more ethically than the aliens themselves had. 3 weeks after the departure, Chancellor Zeph High stood alone in the empty council chamber. Most of the other delegates had returned to their homeworlds to deal with growing crises. Emergency sessions were held by holographic link because travel between systems was becoming increasingly difficult. He activated a communication terminal and tried once again to contact Earth. The message was simple and desperate. "This is Chancellor Zephahai of the Galactic Council. Speaking to the government of Earth, we may have acted hastily in our previous negotiations. We would welcome the opportunity to discuss new arrangements that might be more acceptable to both parties." The communication disappeared into the quantum relay network, heading toward human space. Like all the previous messages, it would receive no response. Outside the chamber windows, Concordia Station was slowly emptying as alien delegations departed. The great diplomatic station had been built as a symbol of galactic unity and cooperation. Now it felt like a tomb. The Chancellor's aide approached with the latest reports. Her crystal body was barely glowing, reflecting the exhaustion that had overcome their entire species.